Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a company update from Novo Resources, chatting with the executive co-chairman Mike Spreadborough and the general manager of exploration Kas De Luca. We are reviewing the most recent news release from June 19th, an update on the exploration in the Pilbara area. We have some reconnaissance aircore drilling from Balla Balla. We also have some early stage work at some gold and antimony prospects, as well as an update from the Egina JV, now with Northern Star Resources. Mike, let's start off with you. Just as a quick comment regarding this exploration that's ongoing, it all is still, it seems, very early stage exploration. So, can you explain what the strategy is, what the company is doing here at the wide range of projects we're about to talk about in terms of exploration, what you hope it leads to, please?
Good to catch up again, Cory. So many people would hear a lot of focus this year on our New South Wales projects, both Pilbara and John Bull, which we'll touch at the end. But, we've been focused on those. They're advanced projects, high-grade gold systems that we've been able to get in there and do some drilling, or will do some drilling. But whilst we've been focused on that, the team has continued to work in the Pilbara. These are very much early stage projects. So going through the whole process of exploration, as I've talked before, it's a bit like an onion. We got to peel away the layers. So the announcement that we put out overnight focuses on Balla Balla, which Kaz will talk about some of the exciting alteration assays that we've got there. But Balla Balla, it's a regional play. No one else has been there. And we just got to remember, this is the first time anyone's done any modern exploration there. So very early in trying to understand the geology. We've also talked in our update a bit about Sherlock and Wyloo, which are our gold antimony targets that we've done a bit of work in the past on the ground and mapping. We've done a bit more work, and as you see in the release, we're gearing up to do some drilling. So like the onion skin, we're moving those projects along to an early stage. So going very much early stage, and then we talk a bit about the Egina Gold Camp in our release. And again, we've just got access there from the traditional owners, and the team will be out there shortly doing mapping on the ground. So all of the projects that we talked about in our release are very early stage projects.
Kaz, let's talk about some of this aircore drilling at Balla Balla. You drilled just under 6,000 meters on some regionally spaced lines that are really wide apart. They vary from 640 meters to 2.8 kilometers apart. Explain how this targeting is going. You're testing obviously a massive area, so what are you doing in terms of isolating where to follow up?
Thanks, Cory, and you're dead right. This tenement is over 15 kilometres strike length across the Shoal Shear Zone, which we've always assumed and we've always interpreted is a fertile structure. Then the release that we did earlier in the year, just to talk about the program, we did a little bit more sort of scientific information on why the shoal is important. So what we've done now is we've generated a whole series of targets from the work that we did late last year and early this year, and we've tested them with regional line-spaced aircore. Now, again, just to reiterate, the aircore is a drilling technique that I'm not sure your listeners will all be familiar with, but its objective is to get under the cover. So that some of these areas have got some cover sequences. They're not deep. They average around 20 meters. But the aircore drilling is really just getting to the top of the rock, which normally would be a soil sample. So there's two ways of looking at the aircore. One, it's really for what is the rock and what is the geochemistry. And the line spacing is really, we have to test our priority targets first. And in part, the objective is to also do an analysis of what's the most priority ground. So we have a land prioritization or a land reduction so that we can put all of our money into the right things. So there's been some really good results from the work that we've done at Balla. There's some lines up at Ram Quarry that have actually lit up, and they're really altered. The rocks are altered. It's in the middle of on the edge of the Shoal Shear Zone, right next to an interesting intrusion. And it's also hosted within what we think is the Malina Basin, which, of course, hosts our Besha property and also the world-renowned Hemi deposit. Obviously, we're looking for the fertility. We want to know that there's gold there. It's a proof of concept and it's worked. And not only is there gold anomalism across more than a 5 kilometre strike trend, there's a suite of multi elements, metals, and pathfinder type elements that have also really shown us that we're on the right track and there's a fertile system happening. You can see some of the numbers in the release, up to 96 ppm gold, some antimony, the anomalous bismuth, antimony, tellurium are really interesting, a suite of elements that will help us in our Pathfinder vectoring towards what we hope is a more gold focused program.
Okay, these results that we're seeing, as you said, they're in ppm. So that's easy to convert. 1 ppm equals essentially 1 gram per ton for all our North American audience. Now, you saw some low-level gold here under 1 ppm, actually 0.114 ppm gold. You saw some higher-grade silver, some antimony, copper, bismuth, as you said. What excites you here? Where are you going to follow up, and what would move the needle to actually isolate a target to drill deeper, actually have a drill program on an isolated target?
Well, in reality, we really do need to do some follow-up work. The best results so far have been in the Ram Quarry project up in the northeast. And right away, when we saw the rocks as they came out of the ground, and they're really altered rocks. They're full of sericite, silica, pyrite, sulfides as well. And we did do some fast track work to do some multi-elements down these holes as well. The fact that we've got a suite of other elements that actually match up with the gold anomaly, and the fact that the gold anomaly is positioned both in the north at Ram Quarry and the south at Babbage, that's over a 5 kilometre strike length just there. And Ram Quarry itself, those two lines are 640 metres spaced away from each other. So, it lights up. That's an area of focus, obviously. It's in the right position. It's next to the granite contact where the shoal shear zone and the granite come in contact. And it's we think, in the Melina Basin. So that's certainly going to be an area that we need to do some follow-up work.
Okay, so we can see in figure 2, figure 3, what you were talking about, some of those areas, some of those targets. How many targets at the end of this 6,000, almost 6,000 meter drill program, how many target areas do you have that you're going to be following up on?
Well, when we say target areas, we give names to these things really just so that we can point towards Ram Quarry in these sorts of conversations that we have. But in reality, the Ram Quarry to Babbage area, as I said, is over 5 kilometres in trend. So that could encompass any amount of targets, but it needs to be drilled. We're thinking clearly about doing some infill between those two prospect areas right now. And, that because they've actually lit up with pathfinders as well as some gold anomalism, we'll go there before we'll go to any of the other targets that we've come up with in the past. We do have several different targets that we've named, but these are the obvious ones to follow up.
So, Mike, let's get you in here. Final comment on the Balla Balla area and project. When do you think you'll have more information on follow-up drilling at these target areas or these prospects at Balla Balla?
Yes, so as Kaz described, we're really excited with the low-level anomalism that we've seen here. So Kaz and her team are going to use some of the smart geochemists in Australia to really understand the regional and big picture. So most of our listeners should really expect us to be saying something publicly about this, towards the end of Q3. This is not a simple process now. We really need to think about some really solid technical geology. We've got a great team that will do that. So probably hear from us at the end of Q3 in terms of what the next step is for Balla Balla. And then we'll consider that, what we do there in terms of priorities elsewhere. Remembering that in the Pilbara, we generally don't drill much in December, January, February because of the weather.
Okay, well, let's move over to the gold and antimony prospects. Starting with Sherlock Crossing, we can see that in figure 1 on the west side of the map, pretty much right in the middle. This seems to be a focus for the soil anomalies of antimony that you found here, more so than gold, although you did have actually some decent gold grades here as well. So explain what's going on at Sherlock Crossing for us, please.
Sure. We've actually been aware of the Clark mine, which is a historical high-grade gold and antimony mine for some time now. We did work up this area back in 2022, and our regional sampling then, which is mostly streams based, came up with some gold, but a very coherent anomaly that was over 2.5 kilometres with antimony. So we've always had this project in our minds. Just lately, as antimony's obviously become more well known and more important in the industry, we've really sort of focused on anywhere that we had in the Pilbara, and that there are two main areas that we do like. Sherlock is one of them, and so we've really just done small work on the way through, a few exploration programs on the way through to now. And the most recent work that we've done is obviously that soils program that's come up with a great anomaly over 1.5 kilometres with pretty high grade antimony. And we have decided that it's, we do really need to drill out here. So we've got a drill program that will test underneath and along strike of the mine, whilst we actually then work up, because we need to do some really good geology, some mapping that soils anomaly in the south. So that, the whole picture there started off as being the small mine with some great numbers. Proof of concept was we went back and we sampled some of the rock spoil at surface and came up with those numbers that you see actually in the release there, with 146 grams of gold and 3% antimony. They're great numbers and the best sample there. And since then we've expanded the footprint, because we've always thought it was larger than just the Clark mine. And as you can see in the release there, it's a 1.5 kilometre anomaly that trends all through a major structural zone there. And we'll certainly be working that up as best we can in the not too distant future.
Okay, so this is another prospect. I guess second half of this year we'll get more information on what's going on there. What about the other antimony or golden antimony prospect, the Southeast Wyloo? I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Where is this in relation to all the other projects, and explain what's coming at this prospect?
Yeah, well, Wyloo is really interesting in terms of its antimony and other metal content. It's another area that we've had for some time now, but we haven't been able to access it for various reasons in terms of compliance. Well, we can now, so it's back on the radar, and we're certainly going out there within the next 3 weeks, I'm hoping. There are two really interesting anomalies there that we've explained before in our September 24 release. The area is really underdone. It is in the southern Pilbara, just to the northwest of Paraburdoo. And, it's an area that we've done some regional work on that's hinted towards great anomalies to follow up, but we've not really yet been able to get back and do that. So the historical work that we've done has got, 380 grams of silver, 2% copper, and so on. And it's, again, looking very good. Sorry, 0.5 gram of gold with all of that. So we just really need to get back on the ground and get stuck in and do some more work out there. This is very sort of reconnaissance stage. We're not ready to drill out here yet, but being able to have access is great. We've managed to, whilst we've been drilling in the eastern states and working on our new projects there, we've been able to advance all of these targets and all of these prospects that you're seeing in the news release today. So we're pretty happy.
So, Mike, with these targets and this drilling at Balla Balla, plus the new heritage access approvals here, this is all just in Pilbara. As you both have said, you also have the New South Wales projects, but you're just one company. So how do you go about moving forward all this exploration that it sounds like you're planning on doing? And when do you either need to focus on certain projects, or also would you even look for partners to drill and advance some of these assets for you?
Yeah, so for the first thing I'd say is, when people can look at our exploration pipeline, we've now, over the last 12 months, built a good pipeline. We've got some really early stage projects in the Pilbara, which we've talked about today. At the other end, we've got the projects in New South Wales that at Pilbara and John Bull. So just quickly on those, Pilbara, We've done the drilling program. Results will come out sometime in the next month, and John Bull will go drilling sometime in Q3. So we've now got the end picture, and in the middle we still have the Egina joint venture, which is now owned by Northern Star. So, it is important, I think, for an exploration company to have projects across that pipeline. While Kaz and the team are very busy on the early stage ones, building them up to a drilling program, we're off executing drilling somewhere else. And we need to remember that every one of these early stage projects that we kind of build up from what we see on the ground, not all of them will lead to a drilling program, and not all of them will lead to a second stage drilling. This is, I think, part of the excitement and the journey you go through in exploration. So it's important for us to keep building those early stage projects. When they get to a stage like Balla Balla did late last year, we then kind of think about our priorities in terms of drilling, particularly, as I said, knowing that the Pilbara, we don't drill kind of in the summer months. So we want to focus in New South Wales for there, then come back to the Pilbara at this time of the year. So we do move around, as Kaz said, on our priorities based on where we see, the potential, but also what stage is that project at in terms of needing new data. And that's always the challenge with exploration. Eventually, you've got to get below the surface, and the only way we can do that substantially is with drill holes. So we've got a good portfolio, and we haven't even talked about our Onslow thing, which people will hear down the track. But Toolunga is really super, super early stage, district scale. It, to us, has all the potential of something bigger. So we keep working on them, Cory.
So are you willing or open to bringing in a partner, though? Somebody comes to you and says they want to JV one of these targets, one of these projects from you. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, definitely. And, if people recall the Egina joint venture that we have with Northern Star, originally De Grey, but now Northern Star, that came out of exactly the type of work that a team had doing at Balla Balla. And then we did some drilling, and from that drilling, we saw that there was a potential for a big system. It was very close to the Grey's Hemi project. So, you then can have a serious conversation about, do we keep funding that 100%, or is it something that you do work on a partner? So we're agnostic in where we go with each of the projects, but it is a case-by-case project. And as people have seen in the past, our exploration has delineated lithium projects, which we don't see as core, but we've been able to do enough work to sell off lithium projects, which have helped our cash position. So we'll keep doing that, Cory.
Final comments then. Let's talk about that Egina JV. Now with Northern Star Resources, after they took out De Grey Mining, I know people were wondering if Northern Star is going to continue to move forward with this JV. It seems like from that news release that they're reviewing the data, and we should get some news on what future exploration work they're going to do. But Mike, explain how this relationship is going, please.
Yeah, correct. So Northern Star's now finished the takeover De Grey, so they're now the owners of the Hemi Gold Project, which also includes our Egina joint venture. So that's really great. A reminder to people, it's a $25 million spend for 50% of the project. De Grey completed the $7 million spend, and so now Northern Star would need to spend another $18 million to get 50%. We've had good meetings from the CEO all the way down to the technical team, and the technical team are just getting on top of the ground and also the data. So as Kaz said, their technical team's busy working through that data, understanding, the historical work, interfacing with Kaz and her team on our good knowledge of the ground. And we look forward to Northern Star completing that review so we can all sit down and come up with an exploration program to progress that joint venture. We still think that area is very prospective. It's only 30 to 50 kilometres away from the processing plant that will be at the Hemi Gold Project. But there's new owners, and as you can imagine, they want to have a good look in the cupboard before they commit to doing actually work on the ground yet.
All right. Well, thanks for this update. Thanks for explaining that news release of this Pilbara exploration update. Again, Mike Spreadborough, Executive Co-Chairman of Novo Resources, and Kas De Luca, General Manager of Exploration. Please, everyone, continue to send me your questions for the team at Novo Resources, and I will continue to get those answered for you on these updates as the company releases more exploration news. So Kaz, Mike, thank you again for your time today.